Hello and good morning, Steelers fans. Happy start of training camp. You are listening to the New Standard podcast here on this Wednesday, July 26th, 2023. This is also the day the 2023 Steelers and hopefully 2023, 24 Steelers are arriving at St. Vincent College in Latrobe, Pennsylvania for the start of training camp. Obviously, there's a lot riding on this season. There's a ton going for Pittsburgh. They've been building for some success the last couple of years. We've lived with mediocrity. This might be the year where they achieve above mediocre status. We're excited. I am Neal Coolong. Not with me today, Lance Williams. You might have recognized I'm the one talking and not him during the intro. That means he's not here. That means he is out on top secret assignment somewhere in the world. And as usual, I am not allowed to know, except that Lance is fighting for freedom across the world, and we thank him for his service. Training camp is pretty much the only topic today. That's what we want to talk about. That's what we're going to dig into. Some news first. You might have seen this reported on Tuesday. Steelers' second round pick, 32nd overall pick, the tweener, Joey Porter Jr. signed his contract yesterday and will participate in camp. Not that that was necessarily a question, but oddly enough, the fact that the officially recognized round in which Porter was drafted was the second. However, being that he was the 32nd overall pick, that's typically a first round pick. The only reason this situation exists is because the Miami Dolphins were docked their first round pick for trying to get Tom Brady to sign with their team a couple of years ago. We won't get into those details, but there were only 31 first round picks this year. Porter was the 32nd player taken. He does not get a fifth-year option on his contract, but I am sure they wanted to negotiate a few details that might have been more in line with the first round pick. I haven't had a chance to really dive into that contract, but everything that I did see on the surface level looks like a pretty normal 32nd overall pick. I forget the guy's name, but with, I think it was Seattle a couple of years ago, same type of issue with him, an offensive tackle. Again, I forget his name, but he signed on time. Everything was fine. Porter is in camp. We're very excited about that. Obviously, some news coming out of Latrobe. I wouldn't even really call this news, but Ray Fittipaldo, probably not a fan of the show, but a hell of a nice guy, tweeted out this morning, Broderick Jones, the Steelers' other real first-round pick, 13 overall, offensive tackle out of Georgia, came in late last night to Pittsburgh and took an Uber from Pittsburgh International Airport to Latrobe, and his Uber driver recognized him. Might not be a big thing in other places, but in Pittsburgh, I think it'd be pretty cool fare for that guy to pick up. I kind of wanted to get details from the driver. That would be kind of cool. Probably a big fare as well. That's a good solid 2-hour drive, probably 2-hour drive from there, I would guess, without traffic. With traffic, I remember covering the Friday night practice back in the day. I left, at that point I lived not too far out of downtown, but I caught traffic through the north side of town. It took me a good 2 hours to get there, and I was driving, no joke, 95 to 100 miles an hour the last 20 or so miles when it's open out there getting to camp, just to get there on time to get on the bus, because there's absolutely no parking at that place, and I would have missed the entire session. Memories. Love training camp. I love this time of the year. We're very excited, like I said. One thing we wanted to dive into here on the New Standard podcast was what exactly is training camp, what they're doing, what the purpose of it all is. And there's a lot of different ways to go with this. 10,000 foot level. Training camp is not the time to get into shape. They come in typically in excellent shape. One thing to note as far as the conditioning goes with training camp, every team has some type of conditioning test to start off. Often, when you haven't heard a player have any type of injury or surgery that they're recovering from, like Kyler Murray, for example, the Cardinals were aware that he was going to come into camp injured. They put him immediately on the physically unable to perform, or the PUP, or the PUP list. That means he is still reserved on the team, but there's a roster spot that can be opened up until that player is ready to practice. He can be activated from that at any time. Why that's important right now is because players who land on the PUP in training camp, and you probably you're not aware of any type of injury they might have had, probably failed the conditioning test. I only bring that up because I found it interesting the other day when former Steeler wide receiver Chase Claypool was placed on the PUP list for the Bears. He was activated the next day. I can almost guarantee you that means he failed his conditioning test, which I think is so on brand considering what we have seen of Chase Claypool, the conversations we've had on this podcast, as well as anywhere in social media about Chase Claypool. More than anything, though, what's interesting to me is the fact that this is a contract year for Claypool. He was traded, as it turns out, for the 32nd overall pick in the draft. And he, I think, caught 12 passes in 8 games, something like that for the Bears. You'd think the one thing he would do is get into shape. I guess not. Yeah. Have fun, Chicago. I'm rooting for you. Big Justin Fields guy. I hope they do well, but Chase Claypool, man, I tell you. Anyway, point of training camp, the conditioning part of it is not what they're there to do. What they are mainly doing is drilling at a level of incredible detail over everything they're going to do. Some might call this the installation. They're putting in the offense that they're going to run, the defense that they're going to run. Now, while that seems like it's a plug and play thing, like you have, file X that you just give to everybody, your playbook or your scheme, it's a collection of a lot of things. And coordinators in the offseason, they will go over all the evaluation for every player that's there that they expect to have, things that they need from their offense, things that they're going to look for out of each position. And from that, the plan is to run, certain offensive schemes, plays, combinations. In other words, we're going to block this way. These are the kinds of routes we're going to have our receivers run. This is where we want our quarterback to be. All of those things. And it's play to play. Things are very, very different, and they flex and they change in training camp. You think of it like it's a wide open tapestry to lab up all the stuff that they're doing. Everything that everything that they want to run that they know of in July, they're going to drill at a very high level. Excuse me. You think of it like this. An offense going into a game will plan out X amount of plays. When I say plan, I mean they installed those leading into the week and they practiced those plays. Oftentimes you hear it described as the 12 to 15 scripted plays that they'll start off a game with, by and large. Some are situationally specific. Some are just kind of, we're going to run this wherever we are. They want to be able to get those down to the point that they are running perfectly all the time, and to simulate that in game condition as well as practice condition. There's a lot of repetition that comes with this. My experience in covering training camp is that's a lot of what they're doing. You're not quite close enough to hear specifically what they're saying, but they're going through all of the things that they need to have down pat for the season, because you need to have 15 plays that you can run perfectly. And believe it or not, and most fans don't really see it this way, it is very, very hard to get 11 people to do what they're supposed to do perfectly within a 4-second period of time against combative opposition. So drilling, repetition, practice, critically important to that goal. And they want to set a foundation. They want to have a base of what they're doing. That gives you the ability to build off of things. Once you have this down, you can add this. Everyone has to know what they're doing. Plus, you got, I'm not going to count, but you've got a lot of guys on every team that have not played with you before. You don't know about them as well as you need to. They don't know about you. You're learning each other. There's only so much that you can do overall in the offseason. You're not coming in perfectly. This is why we talk about this a lot in this show. Continuity is very important to a team. When you get the same 5 offensive linemen together with the same coach and you're going to run the same scheme, you can build on more things. If you're starting from ground zero every single year, you have to go through all the fundamentals, get everybody on the same page, and then figure out how well things are going to go with the group that you have. Hard to do. They have some continuity this year. Some, not a ton, but some. Certainly more than they've had the last couple of years, when all we did was bemoan the offensive line positions, how rough that's going to be, especially in the early going. I think this year they might be able to actually get over the hump and look like an NFL team within the first 3 weeks, which they didn't do the last couple of years. We're excited about that here on the New Standard podcast. Again, my name is Neal Coolong. Lance Williams is off on international assignment, parts unknown. We are not aware of where Lance is, but we are praying for his safety. And no, that's not him making comments in the chat. And we're going to get to Brojo versus Dan Less in a little bit here. Well, you know what? Let's get into that now. If we're going to do the cliche position battles to watch thing, there's one that I want to dive into in particular. I would imagine most Steelers fans are interested in this answer as well. It's your left tackle. Now, the Steelers, 2 things happened in this draft for them that is very, very rare. One, they traded up with, what's thought to be a rival, the New England Patriots. They don't trade up in the first round incredibly often. We all know that they do, and they tend to have more success than not when they do that, except Devin Bush, who's, I think, with Seattle. I don't know if he passed his run test or not. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. Jury's still out. In this particular case, they traded up to address a position of dire need, in my opinion, long term. The reason is Dan Moore, I guess we can kind of call him a veteran now, 3rd year left tackle, thrust into the starting lineup as a rookie, did not fare particularly well. Last year didn't strike me as having improved a significant amount. My opinion, the biggest weakness on the team, however we want to slice this. I don't care what Steelers paid employee says. It's plain and obvious. He's not up to the task on a snap-to-snap basis. It's the detriment of the team. It's hard to achieve protection when one of your units on the line is consistently being beat by his opponent. And that's really what we saw with Dan Moore. I'm not trashing him as a human being. I'm sure he's a great guy. I'm glad that he's made the money that he has. I appreciate the work that he's put in, because he got put into a real tough spot. They're rarely in the NFL will you see a 4th round pick start at left tackle as a rookie. You won't see that. Doesn't happen very much. He was in a tough spot. I have felt for a very long time now they could do better at that position. Enter Broderick Jones, Brojo. Highly athletic, big time prospect out of the University of Georgia. I don't think you can look around the league and find many guys who clearly are built to be NFL offensive linemen today, more so than Broderick Jones. He is big, long, he's lean, light, athletic. Like anybody coming into the NFL, he's probably going to add a little bit of weight, but he is the type of athlete, and he is the type he has the type of mentality to be a successful tackle in the league. I think it was a smart move of them to trade up. They eventually got the pick that they gave to New England back from somebody else. It was a smart move. Now, the question, though, with Jones, and this is why he wasn't a top 5 pick, he's pretty raw. His pass protection, his feet are not quite right yet from what we see in the college film. I don't know what he's going to look like in camp. But the thought going into camp was it goes a couple different directions for me. This is what's so interesting about it. Jones doesn't look ready per se to be an NFL tackle, but at the same time, Clearly, this team didn't care about throwing Dan Moore out there 2 years ago, and Dan Moore is half the athlete that Broderick Jones is. Do they really? Are they going to care now? They traded up. They gave up assets to go get Jones. So logic would dictate he's probably going to be good enough to start. Along with that, with the exception of David DeCastro getting hurt during a preseason game and missing most of his rookie season, pretty much every rookie since 2012 for the Steelers has been thrown into the fire right away. They've played a bunch. So these are, kind of weights that you can throw onto the scale of starting Broderick Jones. At the same time, he really is raw. Not in the run game as much. He's a badass in the open field. You send that guy off the line, quick game passing, getting downfield and getting a block. You're going to see him do some stuff. He's going to hurt people. Pass protection, dropping back, he's got some work to do. And everybody knows that. Because again, if he was that refined with his build and his athleticism, he would have been a top 5 pick. Easy. So there's some work to do with him. And it's a good thing. We're totally fine with that. You don't need your franchise left tackle to be an all-pro on day one. You can build into that. It's a long-term investment with him. Hopefully he's a guy that he can stay healthy. He can stay improving consistently, and he's probably going to be on this team for 12 years. You hope that's the case. Does it have to be week 1? I don't know. My guess would be they'd probably start him. We'll see how that goes, but I think that is an intriguing matchup. The second one for me, I want to go into the general state of the running back position in the NFL. This is kind of a topic right now. You might have heard the interesting situation between the Giants and Penn State product Saquon Barkley. Barkley signed a 1-year deal in lieu of the franchise tag, and it gave him the ability to add on a little over $1 million with some pretty stiff incentives. Simply put, if he catches 65 passes, rushes for 1,200 yards, and goes to the playoffs, and scores 11 touchdowns, he gets an extra $1 million. Kind of interesting. I wouldn't turn down $1 million either. It just doesn't seem to be all that much different than the tag itself. You're talking 8 to 10% difference overall if he reaches pretty lofty incentives. I think it's 1,250 or 1,350 rushing yards. Those aren't the easiest marks to hit in a pass-friendly NFL. And this is, coming along with 65 catches. All this really means he's going to have to play 15, 16 games minimum in order to reach that. So that's what it takes for a running back to go a little bit above the tag. Whereas yesterday you saw Justin Herbert sign for $256 million, something like that. Obviously a great player, but we're looking slightly disparate positions in terms of pay. Why does this matter? Well, because the Steelers have a running back who was drafted in the first round, and he has an option coming up. Najee Harris, over 2 seasons, has, and this really, in my opinion, it is the one topic within Steeler Nation for the current team that is not argued on either side objectively. There are either people who hated the pick before it was made and didn't want them taking a running back, or Najee Harris, or both. And there were people that absolutely love Najee Harris, the old school approach. He's a good kid. Everybody loves him. Nobody is going to leave their respective hills in that argument, and I understand that. Objectively speaking, doing the best job I can do, I can tell you now, for equal reasons, all right? So I'll just be fair. Offensive line had not gelled last season in the early part of the year. Najee Harris was reportedly hurt. We knew that as far back as training camp. And Najee Harris didn't display the kind of vision that you would hope out of a running back who can go for more than an average of 3.6 yards a carry, which is where he was early on. We also saw fairly an undrafted rookie step in and snap for snap perform at or maybe a few ticks below the level of the former first-round draft pick. Why this is important is because Saquon Barkley is going to get paid, probably, if he reaches the incentives, $11 million. He's a marquee guy He's clearly one of the most well-rounded running backs in the game, one of the best running backs in the game. Najee Harris is nowhere close to that. Najee Harris does not have the explosive ability that Barkley has. He can't do that. And at the same time, there was an undrafted rookie last year who was step for step with him. For the team's sake, it's good to have both of them in there. For the team's sake, it's good to have both of them running behind an offensive line. It's probably just due to the experience they have, as well as probably the best addition the team made in Isaac Seumalo this season. They're going to eat. They're going to get more on the ground. But is Najee Harris worth a fifth-year option? Is he going to be worth an extension after that? We don't know. That's the running back market in the NFL today. All signs point to no. So, I mean, there's really not much of a point. It is too easy to find comparable backs. Now, I'm not saying that Jaylen Warren is Najee Harris. I'm not saying he's better than Najee Harris. I'm saying you spent no capital on him at all, and you got 93% of Najee Harris. Why would you draft with a premium pick? Why would you take a guy who's 7% better than the undrafted guy? The space between the top and the bottom of the running backs in the NFL is just not that big anymore. So this is a huge season for Harris. And my prediction as far as he's going to go, if he stays healthy, he's going to get 250 plus carries. Wouldn't surprise me at all. I think his numbers are going to be pretty good. I'm curious what that's going to do for him long term. I'm not 100% sure. Any investment in a running back beyond the rookie contract is worth what you're going to end up paying for them, even if you have a rookie quarterback or a quarterback on a rookie contract. Sorry, Kenny. I didn't mean that. Kenny Pickett. If anybody watched Quarterback on Netflix, fun series. I enjoyed it. I don't think it's quite the life changer that a lot of people made it out to be. It's good. Kirk Cousins was funny. Brittany Mahomes was annoying. I think that's kind of the takeaway that most people had with it. What about Kenny Pickett on that show next year, though? Me personally, I would love to see that just for the insight for the team that I really want to follow. I felt they did it in a very even-handed manner. I felt Patrick Mahomes won a Super Bowl. I felt Marcus Mariota, if anything, was propped up on the show for as bad as he actually played, if you watched it. And Steelers fans, you watched it. You saw all that his man, DeMarvin Leal, get a huge push in the A-gap to make Mariota panic and throw a bad interception to Minkah Fitzpatrick, who ran it back for a touchdown at the end of the game when the Steelers were in Atlanta. That was the last pass Mariota threw, I believe. Maybe he threw again. There was still time on the clock in that game. Maybe he did. But his starting career ended on that play. Fun to watch for the Steelers. I would enjoy seeing something like that. At the same time, though, with Peyton Manning orchestrating that, it kind of makes you wonder what level access Hard Knocks and HBO is going to get with a very reluctant Jets team that absolutely did not want this to happen. I have heard inside the industry they're not getting much. They're really not able to do much. They're getting shut down in every step of the way. Trouble for that series coming, certainly with quarterback being the apple of everybody's eye right now. Station identification. You are listening to the New Standard Podcast. I am Neal Coolong. Lance Williams is not in today. He is off ridding the world from whatever crimes his top secret organization tells him to rid them of. Steelers training camp is the topic. I'd love to hear your questions. If you want to pop those in here in the chat, I would love to read them, potentially answer them if I can. I'd love to be able to do that. I want to stick on Pickett for a little bit, though, mostly because he's Kenny Pickett. And as we saw, now veteran, still feels weird to say that, Pat Freiermuth, veteran Steelers tight end, said earlier this week, we will go as far as Kenny Pickett takes us. And I think that's really simple yet fair. I don't think that's everything, because here's the thing. What we're avoiding in all of the Pickett hype, which I enjoy. I like Kenny Pickett. You guys heard me say it up and down. He's going to need a little bit of time, but the sum of his whole is greater than the sum of his parts. He's that kind of guy. He does not have great measurements. He does not have great traits, but he puts everything together and he plays like a football player. And you love to watch that. And we saw that over the last couple games. We also saw the early, Pickett reign. First couple games, he was pretty bad. We sort of expected that. He improved quite a bit. Very impressive. The amount of improvement that he put in. Where's he going to be in year 2? This is his first full camp as the starter. We're happy with that. That's a good thing. A lot of guys coming back, no quarterback instability. Nobody may be retiring. Nobody's in their last year. Nobody shouldn't be playing at all. They have their guy. This is really kind of the first realistic time you could say this since about 2019. And that lasted, 6 quarters before Ben blew out his elbow and that was done. So they have a good nucleus, and they've built a good nucleus, and we should credit the front office for having done that. Now it's up to the coaches and Kenny Pickett and the coaches with Kenny Pickett. This offense doesn't, as we've talked about in this show, doesn't need to average 31 points a game in order to win, because this defense, like every team in the league, if they stay healthy, they have the depth now and they have the playmakers now. They really could make some noise. I think that this could be a top 5 scoring defense. I think they have the ability to suffocate certain opponents. It's hard to do that in the NFL, but they can put up, 6, 13 points pretty consistently. And with that, your offense, a lot less that they have to do. The key thing for Pickett is protecting the football, and Mike Tomlin's going to tell you that up and down. He's got to protect the football. He wants to speak of the quarterback being almost this non-impact guy unless the game is on the line. You can win a game in the first and second quarter. That it is possible to do that. I hope they're not afraid of that. Mike's going to tell you that they're not. I know we've heard it all. They need to open things up a bit because Pickett needs to rise to the challenge. I feel like he's that kind of player. He needs to be able to step up to what an opponent is giving him, and he needs to get in that fight. Do you remember the Bills game? Steelers are getting absolutely boat raced. Pickett gets shoved to the ground after the throw, probably not even worth a flag. Pickett gets pissed, and he goes after the guy. I forget, is it Greg Rousseau, I think? Dude is literally twice his size, and Pickett's going after him anyway. He wants to fight the guy square right there on the field. That's my kind of guy, okay? I want that. I want the competitor. I want the battler. You need to put a guy like that in the position to have the dog come out. Get him to make big plays down the field. Try to stretch things open. But if nothing else, Matt Canada, please, for the love of God, run combination routes with your wide receivers. You need to coordinate them in a way they can help each other succeed. Last season, it was as if 4 receivers were in a silo from one another. They did nothing interactive. When I say interactive, what I mean, look back at the Todd Haley Steelers, the receivers. Watch what they did. They set each other up. They run off of each other. Routes are in concert with one another. They can run options off of those. They can do a lot more things. Now, those are things that you might not want to do with a rookie quarterback. Not a rookie anymore. He's got game experience. Please open it up. Do I believe Kenny Pickett can win a playoff game, or is that too much to ask for? I think Kenny Pickett can win a playoff game because I think the Pittsburgh Steelers can win a playoff game. Pickett on his own doesn't play tennis. It's not completely up to him. He is going to have to do a lot in order to do that. It's a very competitive AFC. There's a lot of things that need to go their way. But this is a high-level defense, and they're going to perform at that level. That's the quarterback's best friend, not the tight end, not the running back, the defense. I think he's able to do that. I really do. I think this is a 10, maybe if things go right, 11-win team. It's a tough season for sure. They're in a competitive division. I think Pickett, along with what they have, is good enough for the Steelers to advance to some degree in the playoffs. However, it is literally the first day of training camp. You are literally listening to the New Standard podcast, and I literally am Neal Coolong, hosting by myself. I want to thank you all for listening. We're going to tune in again next week when we get Lance back. I hope you guys are set for that. We'll have a lot more to go over. We got preseason games right around the corner here, just a couple weeks away. We're excited for that. Thank you. You've been listening to the New Standard Podcast. I'm Neal Coolong. Have a great day.